But as things are like leaning more right, you're going to see an expectation for Black people to look more uniformed. And one of the ways in which the uniformity is upheld is by us having straight hair. Whenever like there's discourse around Blackness, the first thing that gets attacked or criticized is usually going to be our hair. The reason that straight hair is more favorable within Blackness is because people will treat you better when you have straight hair. People will treat you better when you have a looser hair texture. These are things that we should just be able to say casually without it being like a discourse or people saying like, no, that's not true. You just have low self-confidence. Like, no, baby. Straight hair gives access.
Sometimes it don't make no sense. Does it really have to? There is nothing I can.
Hi, welcome to Mayowa's World. Hi y'all, my name is Mayowa, and on my channel I like to talk about colorism, featureism, and texturism. Today's conversation is going to be around texturism. So for those who are new, texturism is the discrimination of the kinkiest hair type. Before I get into the video, I have been in Nigeria for 6 weeks, which was very rejuvenating and very much so what I needed. And so I took a break from YouTube and I feel like I have so much energy to give, which is a really great like space to be in. I had a really wonderful time in Nigeria. I was able to spend time with my family, have the proper space to grieve, but also to welcome in joy and enjoyment into my life. Like I had so much fun. I traveled to Benin Republic. I went to the Amaja festival and I just traveled around Nigeria. I did solo travels, like all these things that, I don't know, just made me feel very fulfilled. And so into the new year, something I really want to invest in is I want to get a nicer setup. I want to have nicer equipment, like a nicer microphone, lights. So hopefully for 2025, you're going to see a nicer production. And yes. So I want to talk about how there is a conservative push to the right and how this is linked to the natural hair movement. A lot of things are very interconnected. So when you see a far right push to conservative values, you will also see that reflected in the type of hairstyles and natural hair that is accepted and what is not accepted. I made a video where I was talking about the uptick in texturism and how us leaning into conservative values will have more hatred for natural hair. So I'm gonna put the video so y'all can watch. Has anyone noticed like an uptick of texturism in the natural hair community? Like I'm seeing more praises of hair that is looser or straighter, or like a lot more videos of people removing their locks or showing their locks becoming manicured. And I'm linking it back to the economy because I feel like with conservative ideals will start to be like more discourse around how if your hair was straighter, it's just more manageable, and how natural hair is just so difficult. Like I feel like I'm gonna start seeing more of that. And I started to notice this a lot when I was seeing people who had manicured locks attacking people who had freeform locks and saying that it just was looking messy, because I just think it's a bit ironic to have manicured locks and tell someone who has freeform locks that their hair is ugly, because some people would say the same thing about manicured locks. But I just kind of chuck it all up to just this feeling of things becoming more right, more conservative, you know, and probably like a heavier pressure of conformity and people, you know, having a uniformed look within Blackness. So if you're someone who is on the fringes or who just wants to wear their natural hair, keep in mind that these people are always going to exist, and sometimes they seem louder and sometimes they seem quieter, but keep doing you. And I feel like I'm going back to seeing a praising of straight hair and even curly, looser hair than kinky hair in the natural hair community. Online, I feel like it is very common to see people who have a super kinky hair type or 4C hair get attacked or made fun of on the internet. And I feel like the signs were always there because we have things like the clean girl aesthetic or the hot Cheeto girl aesthetic, which I've spoken about this before, but a rise in like the aesthetics of cleanliness will usually be at the expense of Black folks and Black hair and Black things. Like usually the things that people think are like clean girl aesthetics will be straight hair, being skinny, being light skinned. Of course, you'll see your anomalies of people who don't fit into that, who also identify as clean girl aesthetics. But when you Google the word clean girl aesthetics and you see what comes up, it's very indicative. And also something that I've noticed since being on the internet is the rise of being attacked for having freeform locks. As y'all know, I've been on the internet for a while, And I often go, and something that I think is really interesting is when like lock hair pages will post a video of me with my hair, and the comments will be filled of people saying that my hair is ugly or it looks dirty. And I'll click on the profile and they themselves will have locks. Granted, they will have manicured locks, but that's when I started to see like, oh, people who have manicured locks can also have so much hatred for freeform locks. And it's really ironic because manicured locks was also hated maybe about 15 years ago. And I was thinking about how growing up, people would so casually say like, oh, you shouldn't get locks if you want a job. But now, you know, you actually will see people who work in corporate America who do have locks. And I think having manicured locks has become a form of being more socially acceptable. But let's not forget the roots, yeah? Like, let's not forget how it was looked at in the 90s, in the early 2000s. So I feel like since manicured locks has in some settings has become like the acceptable type of hairstyle to have if it is very like maintained in the retwists. Yeah, they've kind of joined the club and started pointing their fingers at people who don't have very clean and neat cut hair. And the rise of like manicured locks being the standard of locks is something that's also newer, because I was speaking to a woman who grew up in Britain in the 70s, and she was saying that when it came to having locks, it was not normal to have manicured locks. Everyone's hair was either freeform or semi-freeform. And I've also heard from other people as well that locks were not seen as something and should be getting retwisted often. I think the rise in like the retwisting of locks was coming when they were trying to find a way to have it acceptable within corporate America. But as things are like leaning more right, you're going to see an expectation for Black people to look more uniformed. And one of the ways in which the uniformity is upheld is by us having straight hair. Whenever like there's discourse around Blackness, the first thing that gets attacked or criticized is usually going to be our hair. And something that I've also noticed is like as time progresses, there's also going to be new language for old things. Take, for example, I've heard the term straight naturals. And for those who don't know, a straight natural is someone who has natural hair but keeps it in a straight state or keeps it constantly straighted. Another word that I see people use instead of saying straight naturals is they say they have heat trained hair, which I just think is a really like, I hate that word, because why is it that anytime like it comes to Black hair, there's always words that kind of feel like our hair is an animal, like heat trained, like it's a dog or something, like, or someone says you have untamed hair. Like, why is our hair always seen as like an exotic animal in a zoo that has to be like put down? Even the word relaxer, like relaxing it, like these, I don't know, I feel like it's even psychological words like a relaxer, heat trained, like it's giving our hair as a zoo. Yeah, I'm seeing a rise of people talking about heat trained hair and how it's okay to be natural and have your hair in a straightened state. And sometimes I'm seeing people have discussions around having natural hair and how hard it is for them to have their 4C hair out. And then I'll see someone who's a straight natural, and they'll be like, well, I have an okay time, you know, straightening my hair. It's like, babe, if you're straightening your natural hair and it's in a straightened state every day, it's not going to be the same existence as someone who has their 4C hair out. And I want people to be honest about that, because the reason it's in a straightened state is also because of how you're treated when your hair isn't in a straightened state. And that is very important to notice. Everybody has the right to do what they want to do for survival, but let's not act obtuse as to why people are doing what we're doing. The reason that straight hair is more favorable within Blackness is because people will treat you better when you have straight hair. People will treat you better when you have a looser hair texture. These are things that we should just be able to say casually without it being like a discourse or people saying like, no, that's not true, you just have low self-confidence. Like, no, baby. Straight hair gives access. And this is actually reminding me of the 2010s all over again. I'll give you my timeline. I remember in 2009, I think that's when Good Hair came out, who was directed by Chris Rock. Why Chris Rock felt the need to make a film like that, I still actually don't know. And someone needs to give him a little lashing for that, because that film was actually just a mess and kind of made a mockery of the plight that Black women go through. But anyway, it touched me at the time. And I was like, okay, I want to, you know, I was also going to an HBCU, so a lot of my friends were like, let's go natural. So I stopped perming my hair and I went natural, and it was horrific. Everybody was going natural, and then I feel like when I went natural, my hair texture was not the same acceptable naturals as others' hair textures. Like, that was when it became very clear that when people say they want a natural hair texture, they mean a looser hair texture. Because when I would wear my hair in its like 4C state, especially if it was shrunken, I was constantly inundated with people trying to give me advice as to how to fix or or change or correct my hair type. And in my heart of hearts, I knew like this isn't a situation where I don't know how to do my hair. This is just my hair type. And so then from me having my natural hair out, I just started to cover my hair more and wear wigs and say like, oh, these are protective styles and stuff. But it was really also coming from a place of me being embarrassed about my hair, or me feeling like if I have my hair out, it's going to be more problems. And then I transitioned into being what they call a straight natural, or someone who was constantly blow drying out my hair, trying to wear it in a blowed out state. Actually, my hair was genuinely getting heat damaged. And I think heat trained is low-key just a word for heat damaged hair a lot of times. And so my hair was heat damaged. And then at this point I was like, my hair's heat damaged. I may as well just go back to perming my hair. So after the natural hair movement, I actually went back to perming my hair around like the 2012s. And I had my hair permed, and yeah. So I think sometimes like the straight naturals can easily just be a pipeline to getting a perm again. And I am also seeing an uptick of conversations around people who want to go back to getting a perm, which I think is so wild with all the information that is out about how perms are literally linked to cancers and other kinds of like side effects that can happen from perms. People are still wanting to perm their hair, which brings me to this thought that I've been having recently, where I actually feel like there should be some kind of study how our obsession with straight hair and hating our own hair texture is a form of body dysmorphia. Because I don't think that people have done enough like psychology or like the mental, like this mental effects or mental illnesses that can come from the intense anti-Black texturist world that we have. Because I think that constantly feeling uncomfortable in your hair texture, hating your hair texture, doing things that you actually know is going to harm you, like perming your hair, constantly wanting for it to be straight, not leaving the house if it's not straight, that feels to me like it could genuinely be like some kind of mental illness. And I'm not saying that in a stigmatizing way at all. Like, I just think that I'm not even putting it on the individual. I think the society's created this thing, and then mentally we're all trying to like manage within this like effed up society. And I would say that I would have fallen into that category as well, because I remember one time I went to England and I forgot my hair products and stuff like that. And I was there for like a week. I had a moment where I was trying to do my hair and I didn't have any hair products. I broke down into tears crying. Like, it was actually one of my worst like breakdowns ever. I was having a panic attack because I wasn't able to present my hair in a way that I wanted to present it. I was literally like, I just felt like I couldn't stop people from the fact that I couldn't manipulate people to think my hair was a different hair texture, and it literally broke me down. And I think that is a form of like, there's something mentally there, like. So I don't know, if you're a therapist, feel free to like do some kind of psychoanalyzation in the comments. I really feel like we're similar to the 2010s right now, where it's like, I remember in 2010s, that was also like the rise of so many colorist lyrics in music. People were like, being very skinny was praised, being light skinned was praised, having a loose hair texture was praised. I feel like that's the time and the era that we're getting into now, because as we know that when things become more conservative economically, but also politically, so does the hair textures, so does what is acceptable, and so is what people like to laugh at. I also feel like this is a byproduct of what happens when a natural hair movement doesn't actually include the people who are the most affected by texturism, because as we know, 4C hair is the most affected by texturism, but somehow when it came to the natural hair movement, 4C hair was the most left out of those discourse. Yeah, and so what ended up happening is a lot of people didn't actually do any deconstruction work mentally when it comes to learning to appreciate their hair. And you know, you can tell this too with like the language that people are even using. Like when people call someone a natural hair warrior, which I think is just actually such a wild word, because why is your hair growing out of your scalp now making you into a warrior? And just the masculization and the like aggressiveness that's always linked to natural hair is so wild, because you don't call a white girl who has straight hair a bone straight fighter. Right? You don't say that. So why is it that when people who have natural hair speak about their experiences, they're now natural hair warriors? These are all the languages that's like coding us into believing that natural hair is aggressive. Wearing your natural hair doesn't mean that you're a fighter. And speaking about oppression or speaking about your experiences also doesn't mean that you're a fighter either. It's just speaking about what we're all seeing and existing and living in. I think that within the natural hair movement, like there's still always a thing of like, the longer your hair is, the more liked it is within natural hair. People like natural hair only if it's straight. They actually genuinely don't care about natural hair if it's not straight. So if your 4C hair is like able to be stretched down to your hips, people are excited about that. People always love to see 4C hair getting stretched. People don't like to see it in its unshrunken state. And you know, the propaganda element is a really big one, because I remember when people were saying that 4C hair was just so much harder. And it's like, yeah, 4C hair is going to be hard if you're trying to make it look like it's a 3C hair texture. It will always be very hard. And you know, what I think about, have you ever seen someone with straight hair try to make their hair look like 4C? If they had to do that every single day to be able to be acceptable to go to work, do you think that they would not be stressed? Like, of course that hair texture would be hard because you're trying to make it do something that it's not going to do. But a lot of people don't want to accept the fact that the hair texture looks the way that it looks. That is the hardest part. I think when it comes to having a natural hair, the hardest part is really just accepting and enjoying it exactly as it is, not when it has to have 50,000 products. I always try and say, remember your ancestors. A lot of our ancestors didn't have access to a 50-step hair process or a 7-step hair process where each thing was $40 a bottle. A lot of us were working with butters and oils and wearing our hair in its natural state, or putting it in like 2-strand twists or protective styles and just kind of existing as such, or locking our hair up or not. You know, these were things that we were doing. Capitalism has made it to where everyone knows that if you want to make a quick little buck, you should get into selling hair care products, because the one thing that you can always make money off of is Black women's insecurities around their hair. So like, just kind of accepting that, you know, you're being targeted, and like move as such. But I do think it's gonna get rough, and I think these next 4 years under the Trump presidency is also going to be very rough. Let me know what y'all think. If you've noticed this uptick, please comment what you think. Like I said in the comments, if you're someone who's like a therapist or who's into psychology, who can kind of talk about how natural hair like can lead to a lot of like different mental health issues with how we see ourselves, please write a paper on it and credit me. Okay, so if you made it to the end, tell me what you like about my makeup. My makeup was inspired by this girl online. I think her name is her name is Nam Glammy. But I got this like red eyeshadow the other day, and I'm just so obsessed with the color red on my eyes. I just feel like it's just such a sexy, cute color. Tell me which part you like the most about the look. In my mind, I'm giving Shango. In my mind, I'm giving fire. I'm giving, I don't know, heat. My henna is like coming off. I got henna done in Nigeria, but I actually had my whole hand done. So like, I kind of enjoy seeing it like fading out of my nails. But yes, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.